Lovely day, everyone, and welcome to another episode and session in the Envision Workshop, where we empower entrepreneurs with the framework to scale their business using systems. And I love these episodes because so far we have come so far in all of our lessons where I know today is going to be the one that you're looking for. Because if you want to turn your Envision system into a tangible reality, so that way your business can leverage it, this is the episode that you need to pay attention to. And so get your notes out, and as always, participate and engage so you can get the most out of it, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And so in our last session, we went over defining interactions and how that they trigger events that way your users can obtain value from your system. It's in these events and these interactions that your users are able to get the outcomes that they're looking for, and we are able to make sure that we understand what expectations they should and should not have about what our system provides them. And because of that, we are really drawing in and tying and associating our interactions and the outcomes of our interactions to the values that we came up with. And in that, we also highlighted that in these interactions, we want to encapsulate the things that they do and do not need to interact with. Now, when it comes to our systems, there are parts of our systems that are tailor-made for the experience of our users. It's to simplify how they're able to obtain value. But there are other parts that are the complexities of our system that they don't need to have an inside understanding or look into. And because of that, by encapsulating that information away, they now just get the parts that matter to them. And all of that is because we want to make sure that we understand the experience of our users. As much as possible, we want to live through their lenses. And we want to build our system based on creating the experience that they'll find pleasurable at the end of the day, so we become the default solution that they use every time. Whenever they think about their problem, they think of us as the solution to their problem. And that comes by caring about their experience. We want to understand how well our system is usable and now track that usability so we can understand the effort needed to obtain the value at the end of it. All of this comes from taking into consideration your user from beginning to end of them interacting with your system. And because interactions are so important, they are the driving force behind who will be retained at the end of having used your system. It's what allows them to pick your system and your solution over anything else that exists on the market. And because of that, we want to really create those interactions that they'll want to come back for. And so if you have not checked out that last session, go back, watch it, because you're doing yourself a favor. Every week, we are talking about incremental progress because we want to take the steps that are going to build upon each other, so that way when we get to the end of these 90 days, we know everything has led us to what we get to at the end. And that comes by showing up, but having the information that came before this. Because once we really start diving into this lesson today, if you have not looked and understood the interactions, the video that we talked about last week, when we now start talking today, you're really not going to have what you need in order to make the most value or take the most value out of today's lesson. So I implore you, go back and watch that session. And not only that, but stay connected and be engaged. Like, comment, subscribe, network. Do all these things because what you put in is what you'll get out. As a system, this is your input. How much you are interacting is your input. And at the end of the day, how much you take away from it, that output that you're looking for how valuable these lessons will be, are all dependent on what you gave in the first place. So if you want to get the most out of it, don't be passive. Be connected, be engaged. Take your notes, share. That's how you'll build the muscle memory to really take these lessons and then apply them into your business and your everyday life. And at that point, that's when they'll really have value to you. And for those returning partners, welcome, welcome, welcome back. As always, we know, we have that homework to keep us accountable to moving forward and to really reinforce the lessons. And so last week, when we talked about interactions, you guys should have started to identify the interactions your system needs to present to its users. So that way you understand what parts they're manually triggering these events for them to get the value that you're offering. And with that, one of the key things we said is to understand what is your system responsibility versus your user responsibility. What parts are your systems responsible for? What do they need to do? What are they encapsulating? What is the secret sauce behind your system? But then on the other side of that, what are the things that your user needs to do for your system to be able to give them the value? Because with that, we wanted to start understanding what it meant to become the best system for our users. And that required us going through our system and finding out what interactions were unnecessary, which ones were too complicated, and then how do we provide that seamless interaction so that way they always come back to us. Because building off of all of that, when we talk about today's lesson, this is going to be how you make your system real. And so far, we have really been diving into a lot of the different topics to get to this point. But really, the portion of interactions that we talked about last week and understanding what your user is coming to you and looking for as that experience to get the value that you're giving them, understanding that and knowing that will allow you to apply what we're going to dive in today. And so, tying it all in, when I think to an event that happened earlier this week, you know that experience when you go to the store for one thing, but then somehow you happen to grab everything imaginable? Well, something similar happened to Love and I, where we're heading to Whole Foods for literally one thing. It's always the one thing. And after the first aisle we walked down, we determined, hey, why not we just explore the whole store? And whenever you get to that point, you know that you're in for the whole shenanigans of seeing what you want, what you could have gotten, everything like that. And that was our first mistake, very truthfully. But at some point in this impromptu adventure, the cart became really packed. And so once we got to that point of, okay, enough is enough and we need to leave, I was hurrying to get to that checkout line. But as I was getting to the checkout line, I saw sushi. I am a fan for sushi. Something about that raw fish, the rice, the textures, the wasabi, the soy sauce, it does it for me. And now this one's completely my fault, because I saw it and I knew I wanted it, especially since Love being pregnant before this, we hadn't been able to have it. So now there was finally opportunity. I said, hey, we have to. I got the sushi, and the first thing we did when we went home, we cracked that thing open, we kicked our feet up, and we went in. And because it had been so long, I started reminiscing. And in that conversation we had, I was telling her about my plans for a spearfishing trip. We went through, a documentary I had seen previously, and, I love sushi, so it just made sense. Started talking about a whole itinerary of the people I would invite, the places we would explore, the experience. I almost lived the experience. And that was literally, I was like, wow, why aren't I doing it? And then she said one thing that changed everything. She said, remember, you can't swim. And at that point, I was instantly snatched back into reality. Because I, in that moment of imagination, realized that one skill stopped me from making that imagination a reality. And so far, with what we've been doing, we have been operating in the realm of imagination. We've been applying creativity as this skill that we have unlimited access to. Building empathy, something that we can do as long as we decide to have awareness to what's around us. But now we're trying to make something real. And that requires having skills and these other prerequisites to transform that thought into reality. And it's very much so the case that you can be passionate about something, but that doesn't mean you'll be able to create it. And this is the unfortunate truth that many people will find themselves in, because we've identified how to recognize the value by understanding what your market is facing. We've gone into going through and providing what those interactions would look like for them to have the experience that they're looking for. But now that you've done all this brainstorming to visualize this conceptual design of what the system would look and feel like, you now need to get to the point of delivering that. And many people after this episode, when we really start diving into it, will realize what is required to make that vision of this system real. And we'll stop here. And this is the reality of creating, that there will be those who will understand what it takes to create something, and because of that, stop halfway through. Some will stop before they even start. And I want to be very transparent of this from the beginning, because I don't want to waste your time. I want you to know that if you stay until the end, you'll have something tangible. What we're talking about is not possibility, is not about potential anymore. We've done that in these past lessons. We've gone through and used that imagination to create these solutions. From this point forward, we are dealing in the realm of the tangible. And so with this lesson, we are at the first step of what is required to make that system tangible. Because the problem that we need to solve at this step is about identifying the prerequisites needed to arrive at that envisioned ending. Of having that system built so that way you have a foundation for your business to consistently make results, to consistently deliver value, to consistently be the experience that your users are looking for, to be the solution that they always pick. This is a place that if you do not understand and identify those prerequisites, you will step into creating, but you'll be lacking critical knowledge, critical skills, critical credentials, critical timing. And that is all it takes to kill your vision from becoming a reality. Missing any one of those is all you need to not have, and you can go from being really passionate about something into living the harsh reality that you can't actually make it real. And so in that example of the spearfishing, not being able to swim instantly disqualified me from everything else I had planned. And had I invested in equipment, had I invested in looking up spots, had I invested in getting all these people together, because I was lacking that key prerequisite, I would have wasted all of those resources. I don't want you to fall in that bucket. And that is how important understanding and identifying what you need before you start is. Because not only would it be dangerous for me to engage in an activity that I wasn't prepared for, it would also limit me from being able to pursue success later on, because I would be predisposed to this experience and think that I don't have what it takes to succeed because I failed so horribly, not having done it correctly this time. And I don't want you to stop yourself, prematurely label yourself, when all you need to do was slow down, reflect on everything that we've done to this point and then prepare your steps from here forward. Again, we are moving out of creativity into tangible, but that means we now have to even more so consider how we're using the resources we have around us, because it will cost us from this point. From this point forward, it will cost us. So, because we did interactions in our last video, this is really where we can now take our interactions and begin to re-engineer backwards. Because we know what those interactions that our system needs to provide in order for our users to get this value at the end of it, we now can associate what is required at each of those interactions, whether it's from the user's perspective or from the system's perspective, so that way we can turn it into reality. And this comes down to one word: feasibility. Can this really be done? When we look at the interactions that are necessary, the responsibilities that our system needs to provide, is it able to be done? And how easy is it to get it done? Is this really feasible? And when you're talking about feasible, everything sounds good until you start to count the cost of what it is. And this is why many people start dropping out. Because when you start looking at what is required to make this system a reality, you realize that the more that you prepare for it, the better you are able to actually deliver results when you start investing that time, that resource of money, that resource of effort, that resource of mental capacity. The more you spend time understanding what all of your interactions need to become a reality, the better you're prepared for it. And if you have a good grasp of what it costs, you can now really step into creating it because you've accepted it. You're not being surprised. Sure, things pop up. Things come up. That's all a part of life. There's no negating that. But the better you are at understanding at the forefront what is required, the better you are at preparing yourself for what's to come. And that comes down to a couple key areas. One, infrastructure. Is the infrastructure available now for you to do and create your system? If you need something that hasn't even been created yet, that physics hasn't proven, that you have to then go out and create that as your first step. If we're talking about AI in the way that we see it today, the only reason we're able to use AI at the level that we're able to today is because computers have advanced to be able to process the amount of data to build those AIs. Had we talked 10, 20, 30, the further you go back, even if I had the idea of what AI is today, to create it would require me to have the infrastructure, the technology, the materials to then create it. And if not, I have to be the trailblazer to create that infrastructure before I can even start building the system before I can even start building the system that requires that infrastructure. Not only that, but because of the materials required, do I have all those materials? If I'm a company that does home building, have I acquired all of the materials, the lumber, the PVC, whatever it is that's needed in order for me to even begin talking about being a home builder, a contractor? Because if I haven't, and I don't know what is required from the material perspective, I would start and get stalled halfway through my construction effort because I didn't have the materials. All these things that are tangible prerequisites need to be in place if my system is relying on it. Because if it's not in place, I have to go out and create it before I can use it. Then not only that, but when it comes to qualifications, if I need a license, a certificate, a degree, and those will be barring me from being able to operate, I need a license to operate in a certain state or for a certain business. And I don't know these things. I haven't done the work to say, based on what my system is doing, what is required for it to be able to do that? What certifications and approvals do I need to get to operate in these certain areas? If I haven't figured those things out, I will start building my system and then find out I don't have the jurisdiction to actually operate. And then I have to go and backtrack to get all these qualifications that I could have done at the forefront, helped it to build a better system, all these things. Understanding your prerequisites matter. Because without the proper skills and knowledge, you will start creating a system that you don't have the capacity to finish. And not only that, but you have to realize you don't have to do everything yourself. When it comes to building your system, do you need support? A lot of the audience that I'm speaking to are entrepreneurs. And so sometimes that means that you're doing a lot of the work yourself. But it doesn't mean that you need to do everything. Is there a way that you can delegate parts of your system, building parts of your system, outsourcing parts of your system? So that way, again, you can do the part that matters. What part are you needed for? What parts can you get from others? So that way you can build the collective system and not each individual part. If I think of a bicycle, if I think of a computer, I can still build each of these things from scratch, but it doesn't mean I have to build each component in this system by myself. I can leverage a team, I can leverage other people, I can leverage what is around me to have those parts integrate together so I don't have to do it all myself. And not only that, but I have to recognize I don't know everything. And so there will be times where I might need a mentor, someone who I can go and get advice from. How will I be able to move forward when I get stuck? These are the questions you need to think about before you start. So that way, when you actually get stuck, you know how to move forward. A lot of the problems you're going to run into aren't because you can't do it. It's because you haven't thought about how you're going to get to doing it when it actually showed up. And you're spending more time trying to figure out solutions in the middle of a problem. And it's frustrating you that you have to sit so long in the problem, when your goal, your desire, your passion is simply around creating the system. But again, these are the things that will stop people from creating the system in the end. And one of the biggest things that a lot of people will underestimate is time. Everything sounds good, but there is a finite amount of time that you have. If you are not working on your business 24/7 as your main focus, as the thing that you're putting all your effort into, that means you need to be strategic in the time that you have. And even if it's the only thing that you're doing, if this is everything that you do full time, you still don't want to do this all day. You want to be able to live a balance. That's one of our cores. To be able to get to your envisioned ending but still have a fulfilling life while building your business. Your business is supposed to be a supplement, complement to your life. It's not supposed to take away from the best parts of it. And that means there is a time that is allocated for building this system. You have to time box it. This is something that, if we're going to make tangible, is not going to be prolonged indefinitely. There is a time we're setting aside because our time is finite. There is an expectation on because I'm investing this much time, I expect that I will have a system built. But that also requires, on the other side of it, honesty to say, is it really possible for me to build this system in the time I've said with the time that I have? If I'm trying to build the system completely from scratch, and as I talked about all these different parts, and I'm giving myself 1 month to do it, and I'm only dedicating an hour a day, realistically, does that seem possible? For me, it sounds like stress. If I'm only able to do 1 hour a day, to get that in a month, it might be possible. But when we talk about feasibility, is it convenient? Is it easily done? Are you hoping that everything works perfectly? And that because everything works perfectly, you can do it? Knowing what your season is and the time that you have available to allocate to it is important. We want to create it in a scoped amount of time. Absolutely. The system will be done in X amount of time. Absolutely. That's what we're aiming for. That's the expectation we'll bring. That's what we'll do. But when we set that expectation, make it realistic. If it's going to take you a year, if it's going to take you 2 years, put in the time and build your system. But don't try to rush building a system when it's going to take time to build it. That's why we're building a system in the first place, so that at the end of this time, we know that we're getting the results consistently from that moment forward. It's about playing the perspective of setting up the foundation to last you up until forever. Think through, do I have all the prerequisites necessary? Do I have the infrastructure existing to build this out, or is that something I need to factor into my time? The materials, the technology, is that there for me to build my system? Then on top of that, do I have the proper credentials in order for me to be able to actually build in the way that I want to build? Do I need certain permissions? Do I need qualifications? Do I have these prerequisites? Because if I don't, I disqualify myself before I even get started. There's going to come a point where I will not have these things and I will now have to wait. And sometimes, again, you don't have to wait till you have all of them. But if you don't have understanding of what you need, you can't even begin to understand when you can start. And then really being able to recognize, is this the best moment? Is this the right season for me to invest in it? Is it the right season for me to even attempt this? If I'm trying to launch something, a clothing brand, and I focus on sweaters, but then I do a release in the middle of summer, it's probably not going to give me what I'm looking for. Timing matters. And it's the same thing whether it's when you start, whether it's when you release. All of those things are factored in based on time. And these are all things that you need to make sure that you understand, at least to make the best decisions on, is this feasible for me to succeed if I start today? Have an answer to that question before you start. Because again, once we start really investing these tangible resources, you don't want to waste them. This is the point where now it's going to really cost you. It's not just about doing the theory behind it. We've done the theory. We've done the creating. That was everything up till this point. From now forward, you need to make sure that you count the cost for what you're going to do, or you will waste waste and waste more, and not realize that all of the things that you invested, you won't get anything on the back end of it. And this is why people quit. I'm very cautious at this point in where we are, because I want you all not to believe that it's going to be easy. I want you to believe it's going to be possible if you follow structure. Structure is what will make it easy. What we're trying to provide here through these is structure. But if you are just trying to work and get by quickly, to just do something to get to the end without structure, you will create something, but it doesn't mean it's going to be the thing that you're looking to create. It might be frustration. You might create more frustration for yourself. And so with what we're going to step into, I am really imploring you all, make sure that you are applying, practicing, executing, so that way when you start touching tangible materials to make tangible products, you are not wasting. If you have any questions on what we've talked about today, please leave comments. Because from this point forward, I'm saying it again and again and again, we are creating in the tangible. In our next section, we will tackle how it is we actually begin to, on paper, visualize all of the steps we'll take to turn things into tangible resources and tangible systems. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we have started to count the cost to determine whether we continue. Review this session and make sure that with the interactions you have determined are necessary for your system, that you begin to count the cost to actually develop it, to actually create it, to actually deliver this value. If the cost seems to be worth the other side of it, I'll see you next week. If you have looked over this week's material and realized there are a lot of things that I need to get in place before I can do it, that's fine. It means that you're just not yet ready to create your system. Follow along still, but take the time and be honest with yourself to do the work to be prepared. Don't just do anything expecting the results that you're looking for. It requires structure. It requires being prepared. I would be a bad advocate for you if I told you just to jump in and you weren't ready for it. I want you to take the step when you're ready. All of these lessons will be valuable, but for it to be valuable to you at where you are, make sure that you've counted the cost. And with that, really internalize, now that I've counted the cost, now that I've decided I'm ready, what does my future look like? What am I going to commit to? What am I willing to say, this is what I have available to offer, so that way I can make this real? This is going to be a lesson that I want you all to really reflect on what is worth it to you. The value that you can provide, the benefits and profits that you can get at the end of it, the feeling, the lifestyle, all of these things are great, but it comes at a cost. This is the day we talk about cost, because it's going to cost you before it costs your users. Before your users ever pay you anything, it costs you first. Make sure it's worth it for you. And I know this is a little harder lesson, it's a little heavier, but I want to be honest. I want to be honest. Building requires counting the cost. And so, if you have, again, any questions on what we've talked about today, leave comments below. If you've already gone through a similar experience of this, share your experiences. This is a community, and I want to really allow that transparency of experiences for us all to gain insights that we can grow together. I speak with this level of conviction because it happened to me before. And this is one of the driving reasons behind why I built Envision in the first place. Because I realized not understanding cost of what it's going to take to build the vision in the first place will leave you discouraged. And I want to use my story and my experiences to provide you with value. And in the same way, for all those who are going through this, sharing your story will allow others to really, really understand why this is what separates entrepreneurs from those who want to be it. And if this is something that you're looking to do, that you want to really step into, please still join, be involved. I'm going to break down all the steps, but also really know what is required. There are no gimmicks here. There's no trends here. It's transparency. Tap in if you want it. Be connected if you want it. I will give you the structure to build if you want it. But only if you want it, because it will cost you. And so, by empowering you with this framework to scale, to build your business, to have a developed system that works to give you consistent results, I want to ensure that you have what you need to live the envisioned lifestyle while creating value. Reach out to our team through our social media platforms. Do discovery calls with us. Connect, engage with us, so that way we can provide you with that personalized experience for you to have all the tools you need to succeed. Allow us to walk you through this journey. And again, don't hesitate to connect. Leave your comments. Leave your questions below. Stay connected. Stay tuned. Because again, from here on, we're creating real things. We've gone through, and you guys got to this point. You know how to create something that's going to be valuable. Now we're going to make it real. And so I look forward to our next session. This is one you guys have to watch it back again. Meditate on it and really, really take away the answer after this lesson. Are you willing to move forward when you know it's going to cost you? And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. I'm looking forward to those who are going to really sit down with this and say, I want this. Because those are the ones who are going to succeed. And like I said in the beginning, there's going to be people who drop off after this one. But those who stick it out, the rest of these 90 days, or for the 90-day challenge, I should say, you guys are going to see something tangible. You will. And so I'm excited for where you all are. I'm excited for the continued showing up. It's for yourself, and that's what matters. It's going to be for others when you finish, and it's going to be for generations when you really get the system that is able to scale you to the next level. I'm excited for you all. I'm excited for your journey. And so let's get this. Let's make it real. So until our next session, I thank you all for joining. This has been Damari Hanson, CEO, founder of Envisioned. And like always, love and peace. So until our next session, goodbye.